Kakadosh, Boker Tov, Modim Simcha, B'Shut Rav Mansur Shlita. We're just going to continue with halachot. Last night we started mentioning a very important halacha, which is, we mentioned when is the lechatechila time to start counting Sefirat HaOmer. So in Siman Tav Petet, Maran brought down that obviously from Ben HaShmashot, you're allowed to count Sefirat HaOmer. However, though, the Medaktekim, they do it only after Tzet HaKochavim. And then we spoke about what happens if you have a minyan where they're going to come and count Mibeod Yom. So what was the explanation in Maran Mibeod Yom? So Mishnah Berurah, and also that's the way the Sfaradim are being poskim, is that they're learning that Mibeod Yom means is that if it's going to be during Ben HaShmashot, what you could do is you could count on condition. What does it mean that you could count on condition? So for example, somebody that anyway will make the bracha, he'll come, he'll make the bracha, and then what happens is that we're allowed to count without a bracha on condition. If we're going to remember later on to count, we count later on with the bracha. And if we forget to count later on, we already counted without the bracha, but it doesn't matter. The bracha is not me'akev, and then continuing tomorrow, you're able to do that. By the way, this tanai, this condition, is where Rav Akiva Eiger actually learns to do with Kriyat Shema. What does that mean? We know that sometimes it happens in the morning, for example, that we want to say Kriyat Shema, and the way that we're doing the Kriyat Shema is that we're saying Kriyat Shema early, right? But the brachot of Kriyat Shema with Kriyat Shema is going to be done after the Zman, right? After the Zman of Kriyat Shema. So therefore you do it. Obviously for us, so we say nets, we pray nets, we don't have this problem. But if they don't pray nets, you have this problem. So what do? The same thing, you're going to come and you're going to make the condition. What's the condition? The condition is that right now, let's say even if we have a doubt, we're going to get to the time of Kriyat Shema. So right now I'm going to read the Kriyat Shema during the Korbanot. I'm going to read it. If we're going to get to the proper time, so then right now I'm just reading in the Torah. Later on is the proper Kriyat Shema. If not, so then the other way around. Right there is going to be reading the Kriyat Torah, and here I'm doing my Kriyat Shema. By the way, the same halacha applies even to do with the second Zman or not. Because we know that lechatechila Maran is posek, that you should always say Kriyat Shema with the brachot in the proper time. Which means that if you're not saying it in the proper time with the brachot, it's not the lechatechila. So what happens now to do with the second Zman? We know that Maran is posek like the Magen Avraham and not like the Gaon Mivilna, which means he's posek that we go by the Alot HaShachar, we go 3 hours forwards, and therefore the Zman Kriyat Shema and also the Shaot Zmaniyot is always from the Alot until the Tzet HaKochavim. However, though, we could actually use this Tnai also for that, which means the condition is, if we are posek like the first Zman of Kriyat Shema, so therefore this is my Kriyat Shema right now. However, though, we're going to be posek like the second Zman of Kriyat Shema, right now what we're doing is just going to be learning Torah, and later on that's going to be my regular Kriyat Shema. So this is where the Mekor Din, where Rav Akiva Eiger comes and he says, where we learn the condition of Tnai, which means the concept of a condition that you can make when you're doing, even if here you're doing a beracha, right? But here you're doing this, and therefore you're going to fulfill your obligation according to both sides of the coin. However, though, what happens in what is the earliest time? So somebody asked me yesterday, 1 second, but you have the Biur Halacha, that the Biur Halacha brings down, whether it's a Chok Yaakov, the Levush, and others, that they say from Plag HaMincha onwards. So here I wanted to read to you also what do the Sfaradim say about this Halacha. So here it says, somebody is going to come and they're going to pray, right, with the Tzibur, for example, they're going to be in a Bet Avot. And they're coming and they're going to be praying very early. And what happens is they're praying from the time of Plag HaMincha. So he comes and he says, in such a case, you're supposed to teach them to come and count the Sefirat HaOmer without a beracha al Tnai. Why? Because it's only going to be after Plag HaMincha. Then he brings down, this the Yalkut Yosef brings down, he says, if they won't listen to you, and anyway they're going to do a beracha, then what you do is you just close your eyes, you forget about them, let them do whatever they want, and that's it. But even after Plag HaMincha is saying, this is also Shitat Rav Ovadia, you do not make a bracha. He repeats it also in the beginning when he speaks about lechatechila. It's proper to do it after Tzet HaKochavim, and that's a minhag of the Medaktekim b'mitzvot, to wait until Tzet HaKochavim. Nevertheless, as long as it's going to be after Shekiah, after sunset, it's going to be okay. But then he says, Aval kol od shelo shaka hachama, but if it's not after sunset, En lispor haomer bivracha b'shum panim. You should never count Sefirat HaOmer, right, with the bracha. Va'afilu be'erev Shabbat le'achar kabbalat Shabbat. Even let's say we're doing early Shabbat, and we already accepted upon ourselves Shabbat, which means technically it's like nighttime. But he says no. Even that scenario, En lispor kodem shekiah. You should not pray before the shekiah. You should not make a bracha before the shekiah. So it's very, very important just to have that in mind. That again, the earliest time with the bracha, according to the Sfaradim, is after Shekiah, after sunset. After that sunset, which is the medaktekim, that you should wait until Tzet HaKochavim, here you have the condition which was brought down in the Shulchan Aruch, that you could count without a beracha, and then have in mind that if right now I'm going to remember, I'll count with the beracha later on. If I'm not going to remember, so then right now this is my counting, and tomorrow I continue counting as normal because the beracha is not me'akev. The beracha does not impede the actual mitzvah of the Sefirat HaOmer going forwards. Now to do with Plag HaMincha, again, obviously you're not allowed to, but if they're not going to listen to you and they're doing it anyway, so therefore, but again, that's not the lechatchila, that's not even b'diavad. It's basically if they're doing it anyways and they're not listening, so then they just do it, but you're not allowed to count with them with a bracha. So that's very, very important. The last halacha I'll mention is that our minhag is to count Sefirat HaOmer before Aleinu L'Shabeach. There are minhagim of Edot HaMizrach that they counted after Aleinu L'Shabeach. So he says over here, somebody that has a minhag to always count after Aleinu L'Shabeach, and he's praying in a minyan that they counted before Aleinu L'Shabeach, it's still better for them to count Berov Am. They should count Berov Am with everybody together, and they shouldn't count after Aleinu L'Shabeach. So that's also going to be very, very important, right? To just remember that even if it is that you're going to be with a minyan, that they would do it after Aleinu L'Shabeach, before Aleinu L'Shabeach, it's all going to be the same thing to do with. It's better to do it before the Aleinu L'Shabeach with the Berov Am than to do it by yourself afterwards, even though your minhag was always to do it after the Aleinu L'Shabeach.